What's up, everybody? Welcome to the exam breakdown. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Man, how y'all doing? Good to be back. Good to be working with y'all. It is a pleasure and an honor. My name is D. Kumar. My job is to help you get through these examinations as quickly, as fast, as efficiently, with as little drag as possible. And so, sort of that is the mission. And, to do that, what I try to do and what we try to do here is to try to look at content and basically as much as possible. I mean, there's going to be fluff and everything, but as much as possible, trim off the fat, show you what you need to know and give you some ideas. Now, I don't have a copy of your examination, but I can assure you this content is good in every state, everywhere, all the time. We focus on two different verticals. We look to help the real estate professionals, brokers, salespersons get their licensing completed, and we do exam breakdowns twice currently. We're going to be trimming that back a little bit, but more on that later. But we're going to be doing some exam breakdowns. On Mondays, it's for the real estate professionals. On Wednesdays, it's for the mortgage loan originators. And my job here is I'm a subject matter expert. I know this stuff backwards and forwards reasonably well. And I have an incredibly decent targeting system after teaching tens of thousands of people, helping so many people pass the licensing examinations in like every state. Now, thank you for all that have subscribed to our channel. If you haven't, I'm going to teach a little bit and hopefully I'll compel you to do so if you are stuck trying to get through the examination. What my goal is to make sure that we are serving you to the highest level, and it shows. Read the comments. Folks are passing these examinations all over the place, but there are folks that are having trouble, and that's why we're here. Now, the content we create on YouTube is for helping you kind of get through things. Obviously, it's going to work for a certain amount of folks, and then other folks are still going to get stuck. So let me direct you to, we have some incredible assets for all budgets, really. And so the reasonably priced budgets, short money for big value, check out our shop. We have all kinds of stuff. For you mortgage loan originators, we have some killer vocab, flashcards, and we have other materials on the way. We have some study guides, and we have some ebooks that are going to be able to download. So it gives you sort of what you need to know. For my real estate friends, you are going to find a tremendous amount of information. We just released a 48-hour sort of crammer ebook, which is short money again for the value. I hear all the time, dude, what do I study? What do I focus on? What do I don't focus on? And sort of this is an ongoing discussion that I have with my students. And so this 48-hour study guide is going to give you the breakdown. You don't obviously have to do it all in 48 hours, but it gives you a recommendation of what I would focus on, what you should study, the questions, etc. And it's an awesome, awesome asset. We also have an incredible study ebook for the real estate folks as well. And if you mortgage folks need help with more stuff, drop those comments below and let us know what we can do. We also have an elite masterclass for the real estate professionals. Link in the description below. This is for those that want to cut their study time down. They have opportunities now. They're wasting time by studying. It cuts 100 hours of study time down to about 6 hours, and it gives you real battle-tested questions that we've honed over the last 25 years of me teaching live and thousands of folks in classrooms and everything else, just understanding how to gamify exam content. My expertise happens to be in helping folks get over that finish line, being able to explain really complicated concepts, regardless of whether they're in real estate or any other subject for that matter. My talent that I think I've developed is being able to disseminate that information. So it's what I try to strive to. I love teaching to complicate things even more. I enjoy doing this. I don't know why I like helping people. Don't ask me. It's like been litigated before. They're like, dude, why do you help so many people? I'm like, because I don't know. It's just the way I have my DNA works. I want to help as many people as possible. Get you over the hump, get you licensed, get you making money, get you helping you and yours. And that is like the coolest thing ever outside of being a good dad, right? So like to me, that's how I roll. Anyway, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been a professional real estate investor for longer. And, I bought my first investment property when I was 18 years old. So real estate to me is something quite special. And I want everybody that's interested in it to get a taste and hopefully have an instructor that, gives a rip. So many teachers across our lives, so many are great. And then so many have not been, right? It's not just the teachers in schools, but it's teachers in life. And so we want to make sure if you can educate, then help. And that's my goal. All right, so today we do that. Now, we are going to focus on mortgage loan origination stuff. And the idea here today is talking about the exam overview, really kind of separating federal MLOs versus state licensed MLOs. And I want to kind of explain some of the basics. So this isn't going to be super duper complicated. It's just going to be this basic stuff, but it's in the basic stuff where you find a lot of folks mess up questions. And so because of that, now for the loan originators, I understand you guys have a little bit of a hurdle. Is if you fail the exam, you have to wait 30 days. If you fail the exam again, you have to wait 30 days. If you fail the exam again, you have to wait 30 days. And then ultimately your third failed attempt, you're going to have to wait 6 months. Man, that's a long time, right? So there's a lot of cooling off period. And you're sitting, unfortunately, in that, what do I do until I can get to this examination again? And life comes up, right? Because it becomes very hard. So you need an expert. Our sort of executive level programs are those. They have interaction with me, and they have interaction with content that's been very, very tightly curated to eliminate every bit of the nonsense, cutting out like 80% of the garbage and just leaving in like 20% of the awesome stuff. And then it also, really working with me and my team to give you really deep analysis onto how everything is working and what you should be doing. So, if you're interested in something like that, let us know, drop a DM in the comment. The reality here is that, my job is I go into big corporations and I help folks to get through these things. And that's sort of how I approach all of this content. All right. So let's jump in. Let's take a peek here. What we got is we've got the federal versus the state MLO requirements. And those are sort of the initial things that we have to deal with. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you several of these things that you can, kind of check out. I'm going to look over my shoulder just to make sure we are streaming okay. It looks like audio is good. That looks good. All right, cool. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about here is federal versus state MLO requirements. Now, with the federal folks, there is registration, and then there are state licensed MLOs as well. Right? So if you are working for a federally chartered institution, something like a large bank, a credit union, or a federally regulated institution, are regulated by a federal agency, the Office of Comptroller of Currencies, the FDIC, the NCUA for credit unions, then you are federally registered. Now, a federally registered loan originator is exempt from certain things like the licensing exam. And the folks that are really working for state licensed entities are going to be required to have this license, which means the course, which means the test. And in some states, it's going to be an additional test. All right, so you have to work for a non-depository bank or mortgage lender, broker, or mortgage company. You're an independent mortgage loan originator not employed by a federally regulated institution, and you're applying to originate loans in a specific state, and your employer requires you to be state licensed through the NMLS. NMLS stands for the Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System. And you want to know what NMLS stands for. Now, you definitely need to know the difference here between what is a state MLO and what is a federal registered MLO. The federal registration requirements, breaking these two down a little bit more. Number one, let me just show up in picture. Hold on. All right, so first off, we have to register with the NMLS and get a unique identifier. This is also known as your NMLS ID number. Oh, and I got a couple questions. Kate's watching with me, who works with me, and I've got a couple live questions about it. So I'm going to try to address this, and we're getting to this in just a moment. The question is what should they be studying? So we're going to check out the outlines in a little bit. I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what I would start trying to focus on. We'll also have a really, really concise study guide, which should be for a short, sort of relative investment to the value. And we'll drop links in the description, and you can always check back on the stores, the storefront that we have. So check those out as well to give you, really specific guidance. I'm going to try to give you as much of an overview as I can during this session. Okay, so federal registration requirements. Register with the NMLS and get a unique identifier. A unique identifier needs to be, by the way, on everything, including your social media. So as you are working your unique identifier, as a matter of fact, not putting your unique identifier on things like social media would be a violation of the SAFE Act. And there are penalties for violating the SAFE Act. There are monetary penalties that you are going to want to look up in your materials if you're taking these courses elsewhere to make sure you understand it. Now, things move, so I'm not going to tell you the exact number today because you might be sitting waiting for 6 months and things could change, right? They could go up, they could go down. We're going to submit fingerprints for an FBI background check, disclose your legal and financial history, and then attest to the accuracy of all the submitted information. And that's federal registration, so it's fairly straightforward. Now, just by the way, federal MLOs do not need to take the pre-licensing education or pass the MLO examination. So if you work for a large institution, not that I'm sensationalizing or glamorizing these particular names, let's say the Bank of America loan originator, or your JP Morgan Chase, something like that, right? So then they are doing the registration for you, and you're just originating loans under their charter. Now, you don't have to go through the test. You don't have to go through the licensing education. If you do go to a state licensing entity, then you're going to have to do this entire process. The federal companies are in charge of making sure you're taking tests and doing your learning and stuff like that. So which is why you don't have to do annual continuing education and all of this other stuff. The state entities have to do those bits for their licensing to be maintained. Now, state licensing requirements, typically speaking, again, you're going to have to register with the NMLS and get a unique identifier. You're going to have to do pre-licensing education, which the standard minimum is 20 hours. And many of you know you're taking a 20-hour course to become a loan originator. And then every state is going to be slightly different. So I'll tell you, go to the NMLS website, just Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System. Even if you just look it up on search, you'll find that. And then when you go there, you can look up that state-specific requirements. Many will have additional hours. So for example, the state that I'm in Massachusetts, there's an additional 3 hours of pre-licensing that has to happen. So it's 20 hours of a core course. And you can roll this in. It could be a comprehensive course. It could be 17 hours of general education plus 3 hours rolled into a 20. It could be a 20-hour generic course, and then you take 3 extra hours of Massachusetts content. Now, what's interesting about Massachusetts, Mass doesn't have a state-specific exam. They have a uniform state test, which they have agreed with multiple other states to administer in the same exam. So there's some standardized content called a UST, and the UST in some states it's rolled into the national exam. And in other states, there's a couple of them, they have an additional examination that you also have to take, and it could be additional hours. But the standard minimum requirement is 20 hours. Now, there's some states in the United States that only say just do a 20-hour course and we're good to go. Now, obviously, I want you to understand something here. You cannot learn a mortgage industry in 20 hours. I mean, so the going thing is, it takes about 20 hours to understand reasonably enough how to do something to be able to be deadly at it. But to be able to be good at it, it's going to take a lot more practice and a lot more training. So you're going to rely on the organizations that you work with later. Now, the SAFE MLO national test plus any state content. I just wanted to read this really quickly. So the following states still require separate state test components for the originator's license. I'm just going to rattle these off quickly. We've got Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Minnesota, Oregon, South Carolina, Utah, and West Virginia. These states, in addition to the National SAFE Act exam, mandate state-level education and testing requirements. Now, state-level education requirements is a lot more robust. There are many more states that do have state-required hours. However, the other piece that is to note is that those states have additional testing for those state-specific exams. So you have to look into those states to make sure. I cover the national stuff that applies everywhere. And so, this is like the lion's share of your educational pieces. And then any state that's dealing with UST, this is covering this stuff too. So, the majority of states in the United States, we're covering about 44 states. And then there's a few of these stragglers that I just mentioned. They're good states. I'm not picking on them, but they have additional requirements. All right. So kudos to them if they want to. If they don't want to, that's also cool. The Uniform State Test is what is accepted in a lot of states. In addition to all of that, we have to do a criminal background check, some fingerprinting, credit check, and some legal disclosures. And in terms of criminal background and criminal history, if it is an unrelated financial crime, the incubation period is 7 years. So you could have been arrested and convicted for burglary, and after 7 years, you can still apply for a loan originator's license. But if you have been involved in a financial crime, fraud, something like that, in any capacity, then you would not be eligible for the loan originator's license. So just sometimes there are these carve-outs, and carve-outs are great reasons for test writers to ask questions. Just again, making a supposition here, but that's a good place to go. And you're thinking about this fine print stuff. These are the things that you got to go into. So it's not just knowing the bullet points. It's also thinking about where are the exceptions, and those exceptions might lead to more questions. And that's why exams like this can be very challenging, because a writer might be going one more layer deep to say, well, okay, that's great. Yeah, you know that there's criminal background checks, but let's talk about what if you have committed a crime, and where are the exceptions? What are no exceptions, etc. Okay, so just keep in mind. There are fees, and they are going to vary state by state. There's NMLS processing fees, some state-specific licensing fees and investigation fees and background fees. So to get a loan officer's license might cost you, with the course and everything, about $1,000 or so. Hey, listen, the opportunity costs are much greater. If you're really good at the origination job, you're going to make a really good potential living, but the barrier to entry still is relatively cheap, in my opinion. I mean, it's like, hey, how else can you start a business for all in for under $1,500 to $2,000, piggyback off of a licensed entity, and be able to originate financial products, within a few months, right? So that's pretty awesome. In my opinion, I think the barrier to entry needs to be much higher, quite honestly, right? If people pay, they pay attention, and that's the thing. But by having standards and having licensing requirements and having testing and having criminal background checks, all of these things mitigate. See, if you look at your history back in 2008, leading up to that, there were no licensing requirements. There were very lax standards, and those led to a huge economic crisis in 2008, where the housing market basically imploded. And so because of that, this licensing came post-fact. So SAFE Act and everything else came post-2008, and then around the time of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, and then moving forward, there's history from 2008 on. Now, for my friends that were asking in the chat, what do we need to study? So the NMLS publishes an outline of everything that you kind of need to look to. And let me see if I can just launch a browser here and see if I can help you find it. I'm just going to Google. And let's see what happens. So let's go to NMLS, Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System, Individual Test Enrollment. This is just off of search. This wasn't it. I'm sorry. Hang on. Let's just do this. All right. So let's go to. Yeah, no. I'm going to link off of this. We'll go to the licensing system. Here is the NMLS Resource Center. individual requirements, MLO testing. I'm going to go to MLO SAFE MLO test outline. Okay, so I'm in. So what did I do? I went to licensing and registration when you go to their main site. Go down to common individual requirements. I went down to MLO testing, and now I'm here. And then I'm going to go down to related links, and then I'm going to click on the test outline. And now what this is just going to launch, and this can update. This is the test outline page, and you're going to go through. And so here is the exact thing that I would point many people to in terms of what you're going to study. And this breaks down the percentages of the test. We have the federal mortgage-related laws. We have 24% of your exam. The uniform state content, I had mentioned this. Some states have additional state tests. I mentioned those. Rewatch this video in the beginning. You'll see that list. That's 11%. General mortgage knowledge is 20%. Mortgage loan origination activities, which I just went over last week, I believe, a little bit of that, 27%. And then ethics is a huge piece of this examination. And now here are the specific things. One of the things that make this very challenging for a lot of folks is that this exam goes heavily into federal-related mortgage laws and some really granular things that you need to know about, things like the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Truth in Lending Act, the TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure rules, and then some of these other laws like the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, Federal Trade Commission, Red Flag Rules, Patriot Act, Home Mortgage Disclosure Act. So there's a fair amount of content that you have to know. So you really do need kind of an expert to help guide you through. This is obtuse stuff to many people. And so the interstitching of all of this stuff is really the challenge. It's figuring out how do you interweave all of this stuff without looking at it like they're disparate laws and sort of unrelated to each other. You have to know where the tangents are and the connection points and the nodes and the nexus points of learning how to do this stuff, right? So I know this stuff for so long that it's like one of those things where when we teach this stuff, when I've taught students before, that's how you're crafting your presentation. You really need to know this stuff in order to guide people through and pass this examination. Now, there's some people that can just take a lot of practice exams and get the gist of things and then pass. And again, this is a pass-fail examination. But it's not that easy. If any of y'all are out there right now and you've attempted this examination, and I've read the comments, and I've trained a lot of folks, right? So I know how difficult this exam can be for some people. So I'm just giving you, don't be too hard on yourself. It's not an easy exam. The license is worth it. Being a loan originator is worth it if you do it right. It is a killer job, but you have to be able to get through this exam. All right, now there's uniform state content. Here's all of that stuff. And again, it takes some craftsmanship to really guide people through things, right? Like we just kind of looked at and we glazed at a higher level licensing qualifications and sort of what is the pre-licensing education, background check, and other requirements. Felony charges, I talked about that just a moment ago. So again, I talked about it matter-of-factly. It takes somebody to guide you through this stuff to be able to do that. And that's why it's important. So keep looking out for sort of those things. And that's why I mentioned, hey, it's short money for the high value because, it's guided understanding of what to think about. And again, what not to think about. I mentioned, hey, that would be a great reason, right? So, with the felony charges, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so defining what an MLO is, grounds for denying a license, NMLS requirements, change of notification, required submission. So everything's right here. Compliance, required conduct, permissible acts, penalties, and advertising requirements, generally speaking, for loan originators. And then, section number 3 here, 20% of the examination is general mortgage knowledge, understanding things like what are qualified mortgages, what is the ATR rule, what is Fannie or Freddie, to be able to reasonably discuss FHA, VA, and USDA. How do you qualify people for this? The various loan products. What are purchase money mortgages, balloon mortgages, reverse mortgages, construction mortgages, interest-only mortgages, and then utilizing terms like escrow accounts, liens, basic things like yield spread premium and servicing rights, how do adjustable rate mortgages work, how to calculate loan-to-value ratios, how to qualify, finance charges, etc. Then there's origination activities, and that's almost 30% of your examination. Loan inquiry, we talked about this last week. Borrower, application, what is an application? What is the offering? Permissible questions, gifts, verifications, etc. So we're going to be going through that. These tolerances and understanding, what are these things and how do these things work and what the heck does 10% tolerance mean? etc. These are all things that you will learn. When I teach my programs, I do that. We go through this like fine-tooth comb, and we make sure that everybody knows this stuff. What is the loan estimate? How does it work? What happens if there's revisions? We talked about this a few weeks ago, potentially. We talked about closing disclosures, and we talked about qualification. We looked at assets, liabilities, income, credit reports, qualifications, and the ability to repay. We have talked about appraisals on my program before. We've talked about things like title report and insurance. And so all of these things are definitely on there. Ethics will be 18% of your examination. And with ethics, there are things like prohibited practices, redlining, kickbacks, permitted, prohibited dues for folks, RESPA violations, fairness in lending, anti-coercion, fraud detection, suspicious bank activity, SARS reporting, advertising, predatory lending. That's another big one that you tend to see many times on lots of practice questions that I've seen all over the United States. Ethical behavior, handling borrower complaints, and then you go on to things like truth in marketing, general business ethics, and you go on. Now, what's I think very cool that the Conference of State Bank Supervisors provides with the licensing examination and the NMLS is these links to all of the different pieces of legislation. So this is where all of the test content is being pulled from. But let's just click on one of these links. Let me just kind of show you. If we're going to RESPA 12 CFR 1024, it's going to the statute, right? So like, here's the statute. And again, this isn't a law exam, but there's a lot of stuff here. And so what creates the overwhelm is that you're like, okay, I'm here. Now I'm looking at all of this stuff. What in the Sam Hill am I going, Sam Hill? What in the heck am I going to study? Where do I even start? And so again, that's the other challenge. Now, there's course providers across the United States. Many of you are taking courses with them. That is excellent. There are some really, really bang up ones. There's some good ones, and then there's some not so good ones. Probably the gene pool in the real estate school sector for brokers and salespersons is a lot worse from what I've experienced over the years and what I've seen compared to the mortgage side. That's a cut above. There's a lot of really good providers. So hopefully you're doing that, but the formats are varied, right? So like if you're taking a self-contained canned course, you still might now have no flipping clue on what to study because now it's a time requirement versus ingesting content that you need to know and being able to sift through what's relevant and what's not. Simply taking questions might be helpful to some, but it may not be helpful to others. So again, everybody is different. If you feel that that is you, then go ahead and leave a comment and see, once something comes out that might help you guide you a little bit better, we're going to let you know. Okay. And it's like, maybe we can help you with this product or this material. And again, we try to price things at all kinds of different price points to help all people with different budgets. And then, we have an availability for someone, for me with canned master classes and sort of limited interaction, but that's a little bit more expensive. And when you have to deal with that now, you might have deals that are pending and like time is money and you need to go. So if that's you, then also reach out in the comments and we will reach out to you and see if we can help. All right. So that's what you need to study. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me go back to this, this image here. Hang on. There you are. Okay. So that's covering the examination. That's covering that slide. We just went through that. Test outline breaks down each section by law and topic. And so we looked just now at the actual outline to sort of guide your focus and your percentage. Use the outline to identify some high-weighted areas. Focus on the laws, RESPA, ECOA, TILA, and ethics scenarios. Don't skip smaller sections like the uniform state content because, again, we looked at that, and that's a pretty decent chunk of your examination. Make flashcards. By the way, we are selling NMLS flashcards. Link in the description below. For you, we've compiled really good cluster of vocab phrases that you ought to know. And so if you want to make it easier and you just want to download our thing, it's available for instant download, then visit our shop, link in the description, and you'll find that there. Then they're pretty helpful. One of our most popular videos is the NMLS exam prep video. So check out that one as well. And you'll see a link in the description below in this live video, linking you to that video, which is a very helpful I think, 25 questions. And then we also have another flashcard NMLS video as well that will help you guys out if you're consuming our stuff on YouTube and that's how you're studying, okay? Quiz yourself going topic by topic. Some of the takeaways: federal mortgage loan originators, there's a streamlined process here. They don't have to take the exam. Those are for folks working for federally regulated institutions. State licensing is more intensive, but necessary for most non-bank mortgage companies and brokers. By the way, there's also like carve-outs for loan processors and underwriters that are working independently. They may also have to go through this process. You want to double check your materials for that. I know for a fact that those are things that you might potentially see. Use the exam outlines to guide your study plans. All right, boom. So, my friends, that was the exam breakdown for today, the 16th of April, 2025. I hope you found some value in this. Again, I love this topic. I know that sounds crazy, but this is something that I have been able to understand how to intercut, interstitch, and explain. Now, what really is cool for me is to be able to cut through all of the noise and be able to teach folks that have zero clue about how all of this works together, how it works, and actually let you walk away many times going, wow, I want to learn more. If you can believe that, that is the truth. You can check our comments out. You can check our reviews out. Everything that I'm saying has happened. So, check it out, verify for yourself, trust, after you verify, whatever the heck that means. All right, look it was a pleasure to be with you today. It's always a pleasure to be with you. If there's anything more we can do, then just reach out to us. I hope the time you spent with me yields you some success. Good luck with your studies and good luck on your tests. I will see you in the next exam breakdown. We're going to post the next exam breakdowns in our community. By the way, check out our communities where we are posting regular questions and soon to be adding some questions for the NMLS folks as well, potentially in a way. So we've got some big things planned for you originators out there. We've been sort of building a lot of content. So, be patient. It's coming, and we will notify you. Keep checking back. I hope I was able to at least maybe influence you a little bit to consider subscribing if you already haven't. So please like and subscribe this content. It keeps us going. We are so honored to be able to serve you. It is absolutely so cool. So once again, thank you very much for showing up. Thank you very much for putting in the hard work. I will see you in the next exam breakdown. And have an amazing rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.